What's up, you guys? This is Fury10 and welcome back to the channel. It's starting to been a while since I talked to you guys, and this is just one of many more videos to come. So let's start off things with EA doesn't believe that loot boxes are actually loot boxes. That you guys are wrong. They're actually surprise mechanics, and that they're actually quite ethical and fun. People find them enjoyable. Oh man, this just led me to, you know what, where the hell did this comment come from? And it turns out that, today at the UK was a hearing by Digital Culture Media Sports Committe. And it was not just EA, it was also actually as well as Epic Games, Matthew Weisinger, Director of Marketing, and Cannon Pence, General Counsel of Epic Games. I don't know who they are, but I'm pretty sure they know a lot what's going on over there in Epic Games because they're basically representing the company in this hearing. And I want to share this hearing right here with you guys because I saw a couple of minutes and there was a lot of interesting stuff going on that they were talking about, and I just want to watch the thing with you guys, make comments here and there. Maybe I'll skip a couple of stuff because there's actually like 2 hours of this, so I'll see how long it goes and how much I can condense it. If it's like more than about like 20 to 30 minutes, I'll make 2 parts or maybe 1 part depending how long it is. We'll see from there. All right, let's jump into it.
Good afternoon and welcome to this session of the Digital Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee, and an evidence session on our inquiry into addictive and immersive technologies. We're very grateful for the representatives both from Epic Games and Electronic Arts for joining us, particularly representatives of the companies who've travelled from the United States to be here for the evidence session.
And that is not me, guys. This is the video. I think when it was being recorded, it was
this afternoon. We're grateful for your time and commitment to the evidence session. I wonder if I could start with some questions. Firstly, directed at Epic Games regarding Fortnite, the global phenomenon of a game that you make. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the remarks that Prince Harry made about Fortnite, which pretty unprecedented for a member of the royal family to talk about a commercial organisation, particularly in a critical way, believing that the game shouldn't be played. And he even said, and I quote, "It's created to addict, an addiction to keep you in front of a computer for as long as possible. It's so irresponsible." What response would you give to Prince Harry about the concerns that he's expressed about Fortnite?
First of all, I want to make these comments before the representatives of Epic Games make that, they give their answer. Is one, I feel like Prince Harry's comments have no weight just because I'm pretty sure he has never played a game. He doesn't know how games work. So I believe when I saw that comment that he made was because he was responding to parents saying that, their kids were getting so addicted to the games that they were stealing their credit cards and using it to buy in-game stuff for Fortnite, which I feel like it's more on the lack of parenting and lack of taking responsibility for what the kids were doing. Instead of disciplining them, they were like trying to find out a scapegoat. You say, oh, you know what? I can't control my kids because they're so addicted to this game that it's their fault that they're stealing my credit card and using it to buy things without my permission, when you should you know what, sit your ass down here and I'ma beat the beep out of you because you're doing things without my permission, right? No, they didn't want to be responsible, so they were blaming the creators of the game and making it easy to not be held responsible for that. But I digress.
We were quite taken aback at Epic by that. Really rather surprised because the statements that were made, in our view, couldn't be further from the truth from our intentions and design philosophy and just our multi-decade approach to developing a long-term, healthy and sustainable relationship with our audience. It's really always been our effort and intent to create a fun, fair, flexible, engaging, and generous form of interactive entertainment for our audience. And so I feel like
and it's funny because you can tell that he's trying not to say hey, you know what, Prince Harry is wrong. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. It's our job to make a game basically entertaining, and you want people to keep playing it, and they don't it's not their intention to make the game addictive, but people can get addicted to stuff. It's not their fault. So it's basically him telling them that in a roundabout way, which
statement that suggests that there was some sort of nefarious attempt to extract short-term profit is a real mischaracterization.
That's interesting. So you clearly feel he got it wrong. What he said is a lack of understanding, or
he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
But you'll be familiar with a number of press reports about people complaining about the amount of money that they spend playing Fortnite, that they're encouraged to spend playing Fortnite, particularly the amount of money that younger people spend playing Fortnite. Do you recognise that for some players there's a real issue here with the amount they're spending playing the game?
So now this comments right here, I can find some. It makes sense because I like Fortnite. I believe I'm pretty sure they're gonna explain it here where the Game Pass is like 9 something, and then you can upgrade it to like $20 or something to get the most amount of XP and stuff like that. It's been a while since I played Fortnite, so like Fortnite, you can buy like a certain amount of stuff during like a day. I don't know if it's a day or a week where once you buy everything, you can't buy any more stuff. So then buying all of that is you spend quite a bit amount of money, and I think it depends on what items are available during that day or week, and it can amount to $100-$200 to unlock everything, and that can be a little pricey. But again, this game is free to play. It's not mandatory to buy anything. It doesn't affect gameplay, so it's up to the player to decide, if they think it's worth buying those items.
Yeah, we have a number of parental controls that are in place, even within the game, for purchasing habits, where we can actually, a parent can go in, enter in PIN information, and control a number of features related to how somebody plays a game. Within that parental control system, we outline the various systems that people can use to control payments, and if that is an issue, they can lock down those features so that payments cannot be processed.
But there was a story in the British press earlier this month about a 6-year-old who was using his uncle's account on PlayStation to play Fortnite. He spent £1,600 in a single day. And these stories are not isolated. What do you do in cases like that? Do you offer refunds to people? Do you accept the fact that maybe someone lost control of the account and money was spent that shouldn't have been spent?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the report.
Right there, you can tell that he was caught off guard. But regardless, yet again, this is the responsibility of the parent or the adult. Letting the minor play in their console, because I myself I have my nephew play on my account, and I have my info in there for my credit card just because it makes it easy for me to buy something without me always inputting it. But I have a password on it, so he can't access it unless he uses the password in order to buy whatever he wants to do, in case he does. But yet again, my nephew, he knows that he shouldn't be buying anything, and I will know if there's a transaction, because if he makes a transaction, he knows that he's basically banned forever to even use my console, and I would not hesitate to basically tell him, you know what, you're done. But then again, the parents deflect that responsibility to somebody else when it should be their responsibility.
The idea that you could spend £1,600 in a day sounds. I'm not sure that you can actually spend that much in Fortnite.
Well, I've got the report here from the newspapers. I don't know if you put a complaint into the press stand.
So for you guys out there, either in UK, £1,600 is that what, like almost like $1,000 something, right? Or anybody that knows, do you think it's possible to spend that much money unless you probably just buy currency? Maybe, but is there like a limit for that? Maybe you guys can give me some insight on that down the comment box below.
If you feel the story's not true,
I can check, but that amount in a single day does not seem correct. But beyond that, we have a player support system that we invest in heavily. That's global, where for these types of situations, people can enter in a ticket either through the game or through our website, and we have basically protocol in place to handle these kind of family fraud situations. And anyone can access that. And
But in this case, so this particular case, this is £1,600 spent a day on 15 separate transactions. I mean, do you have? I mean, shouldn't there be features built in that either require some additional verification of the purchaser or challenge someone before spending what would seem to be an excessive amount of money to spend playing a game in a single day?
yeah, that's where I again would refer back to my comments around payment control systems that we reference in game.
But do you think it's responsible that someone could make that level of purchase anyway? I mean, is it responsible to design a game where someone can spend that amount of money without challenge, in a single day, and then to say, well, you
That's the thing, though. There are things in place. It's just people don't use them. They should be. It's not rocket science, man. It's like, consumer beware, basically. It's not like Fortnite makes it easy. You just click that button and you're bam, instantly you buy all that stuff. You have to, there's certain steps that need to acquire for that stuff to happen. Now, where it comes to question where they take away the credit card and then they input that info in a console, now that is tricky because, you don't have power to stop that transaction.
should have set the settings differently if you didn't want to do that.
I think it's a little bit of a mischaracterization of how we've actually built the game. Cannon mentioned a little bit about this, but we're not interested in maximizing some sort of very short-sighted, short-term, profit from our players. We instead want to have a very open and honest relationship that is built to last for years. And
Well, I kind of feel like that's a little bullshit. I mean, like saying like, oh yeah, we don't want money like right now. We want it like over the period. Man, you know what? I know that he's trying to like make it sound like it's not all about the money. It's all about the players. But just say that money is there to spend. If they choose not to, or if they choose, they have the option. If not, it's there. I'm pretty sure. People choose to make purchases. They're not forced to.
The only way to do that is to do that in what is a sustainable way, and that involves us being generous with our offers. That involves us being as transparent as possible about what people are purchasing when they make purchasing decisions in the game.
But when something goes wrong, so if you've got an account like that, or someone's with that account spends £1,600 in a day, and that's out of character with the playing pattern of the account owner, can someone come back to you and say, well, look, this is what happened. I didn't authorise this. It wasn't my intention. A child has done it.
Yep.
There have been lots of complaints about this before we got related to Fortnite. You can have the money back.
Yeah, that's where I would say.
See, now, like, this is a tricky one because, like, what he said was, like, if somebody logs into the user's login, like in the adult one, right? So I think in this case, like, if a kid goes into their parents' account and that they make a purchase through there, this is already alluding to you, like, what do you do about that? Because you can't really prove that a kid, somebody else aside from the user made that purchase because, they had access to the account. So then they can't say, oh, you know what, like, oh, this, I didn't make this purchase. So, like, Epic Games, they're pretty much, like, stuck in a difficult situation because they're gonna say, wait a minute, how do I know you did spend that money? You just maybe you had a buyer's remorse, basically, and like, oh, I didn't make that purchase, so you're gonna lie about making that purchase and then blame it on your nephew or your daughter, whoever has that access to your account. Is basically, like, why did that person have access to your account and was able to make those purchases? So again, it falls into the responsibility of the parent, but they're trying to the console people are trying to, like, make it as hard as possible for the representatives for Epic Games to come up with a response that they can accept, and they're kind of like always trying to reflect back into but what do you guys do about it? What do you guys do about it? And then they're like, and then Epic Games is gonna keep saying, we have those tools for them to use it. It's the user's responsibility. So it just becomes, who do they want to place the responsibility on, the user or the company? Which I feel like it's the users more mainly. There is supposed to be a little bit of the company, but more of the user responsibility.
I wasn't aware of this specific report, but any player can submit these types of complaints or concerns through our player support system, and we have family fraud rules in place for just these exact type of situations.
And so you would refund the money in that case?
Yes. Yeah. If they can show us that, their child has done this transaction and it wasn't authorized, yeah, it's our intention to be generous in those cases.
He's
So
going
how
to get
would they
himself in
demonstrate?
trouble with that.
I don't oversee the player support system, but I know that we receive those kind of requests regularly, and on very rare occasions, some of those get escalated to higher levels of support or up to legal even. My understanding is that's a really small percentage of those cases, and that the vast majority of them are addressed in the first instance.
How would someone demonstrate that it was the child that had made the purchase, not them?
I think you could show the
Yeah, he's not going to be able to prove that. They kind of...
ownership of the credit card that was
They were caught in the hot seat right there.
used to.
Yeah, but imagine this case. So this is a card that's been registered to the game. A child has gone in and just played the game using the settings that are there and has spent an adult's money without supervision.
I'll tell them, it is your kid's responsibility, mother. But
So
they want to be respectful, I
how
guess.
they demonstrate that it wasn't them who were making the purchase, it was someone else using their card.
In this particular case, they obviously have a history of a significant number of transactions in a very short amount of time. That would basically be the information we'd be looking for in order to issue a refund.
I would presume you would have.
I guess that's a pretty safe response, saying, if we see like unnatural spending habits, we can say, oh, you know what, that transaction was not normal, so we'll give them a pass on that and refund. Whether this happens, like, maybe if you guys are watching this video and you had a one-off case where somebody used your account without you knowing, and then they were able to refund you. Maybe it happens. Maybe they're honest about refunding people with certain like they say the family fraud situations.
What's the average monthly revenue per player for Battle Royale?
Not gonna tell them.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a private company, we consider that competitive information that in general we haven't shared, and
Which makes sense. Not gonna tell how much you earn per player, and they don't want their players to know how much each player is about expense in that game.
Give us an idea of what you think the maximum amount someone could spend is. I mean, do you think players, a regular player who plays, what would you consider to be a regular player of the game? How often would they play?
how often would somebody play in a given month?
Yeah.
It honestly really depends on the player, and the way the game has been built. It's built to be played in kind of bite-sized, consumable increments. Each game session.
Now this question, I'm pretty sure he needs to be, I'm pretty sure he's being careful, because obviously they're trying to see how addictive games are. So he doesn't want to say, oh yeah, our majority of players log in every day and they play at least 2 to 3 hours, because I'm pretty sure these guys have that info, but they don't want to disclose that because it's going to give fuel to, these people to, use it against them. So he's like throughout this whole thing, you can tell that these guys are very careful with what they say, and not to like basically incriminate themselves, like, oh shit, they're onto us.
Itself lasts about 20 minutes, and everything from the way our battle pass is created to the actual just kind of 20-minute duration of the match is meant to be consumable for when you have free time. There's no extended kind of period of grind, or you need to play the game continuously for. We, based on player feedback, actually made it so that these weekly challenges could be completed over the course of the entire 10-week season, so that again players kind of in their own free time can complete these challenges. And again, those challenges are purely optional, and the battle pass itself is purely optional. In Fortnite, there's no actual gating of any gameplay or gameplay mode. There's no competitive advantage that you get for purchasing any items within Battle Royale. And so it makes it a little bit difficult, back to your original question of how many times does somebody play within a month, but with weekly challenges, we would, I think a typical gameplay experience would have somebody jumping in multiple times a week in order to progress and unlock items.
So, like I said again, he was very careful with the wording. Maybe it's true. Maybe certain players, jump in at certain times of the day, maybe on the weekends. It's like every other game. There's always gonna be players there, but I'm pretty sure that they have like an average amount of time their most active players play. But obviously, if he says that will go against him. All the items and stuff for the battle pass are optional, but the thing is, I think that they're trying to. It's kind of like an underlying thing that I think they're not touching here, is that all of these items are optional, right? But this game has become so big that like it's all the little, like, especially on schools, like kids, this is all they talk about, right? So if like all the kids are playing the game, they're gonna in a point, we're like, hey man, like why haven't you got this items? Like, oh shit, you're a loser, you're a noob. I mean, it sounds stupid, right? But like for these kids, like it's a social standing of where you are in the game, and then it plays out in their real lives. So I think there has to be a balance of how this is looked at, because like games can be influential and in a good way and also in a bad way. So but again, this is all up to the parents. I'm not saying that this game cannot has it doesn't have problems, because everything has problems. But ultimately, if you really want your kids not to be like addicted to this, or especially to games, you have to control them and not blame the gaming companies.
You said that you categorize the company would probably categorize players as to whether they were frequent or lapsed players. Mm-hmm. If someone was considered to be a frequent player, how would you define what a frequent player was?
Somebody who's played within the last 2 weeks or 30 days, depending on the metric you're looking at.
Any played at all, any time at all? Yes. So one game played. And within frequent players, what do you think is the average amount of play time for a frequent player within that 2 week period?
It's hard to characterize frequent. I'm not sure how to even.
Well, you've just characterised. You said any. So if we're looking, if you're saying someone has played within 2 weeks is considered to be a frequent player. Mm-hmm. I imagine there are grades within that too. But typically, if you were to say, well, how often does a frequent player play?
Again, I'm not sure if frequency is the term that we would use. Has somebody played?
I'm just questioning you back to yourself. That's the term you used.
I would once again just refer back to we look at it in terms of whether somebody's played in the last 2 weeks or 30 days. I'm not aware of any efforts on our side to ensure that somebody, for some short duration, is spending an extended period of time in the game. It's just not how we build the game.
That's not what I asked you. I just asked you, if someone is a frequent player, how often would they play? Would they play 10 hours a month? Would they play more than that? What would you consider to be normal usage for someone who is not a lapsed player, but someone who is regarded as a frequent player?
Again, I'm having difficulty in kind of pinning down like a single period of time that could qualify as frequent.
Well, no, I appreciate it. It's within the last few minutes, frequent has gone from.
He's like, oh, where am I? He's acting like an idiot. He knows what a frequent player. He probably knows the metrics. He just doesn't want to let them know. And the bad thing that this is actually making it suspicious for these guys, because they don't know, they just probably honestly want to know, where they stand. And, I don't even know why he doesn't want to tell it. Yeah, a frequent player, logs in every day for an hour or two. That's not bad. But they're trying to like, oh no, they play only once or twice a week or 2 weeks. That's our frequent player. Oh, God forbid they know they play like every day and they log in 1 or 2, hours, like, which is perfectly okay for an adult, man. I would play 3 or 4 hours, probably even more. But fuck, if you're getting your shit done, who gives a f what you do, right? But I'm again, they're probably very careful what they say.
From 2 weeks to 30 days, but but by your own definition. But you said the company would categorise people, and you said one of the ways they would do it is to look at frequent play. And I'll ask you again, what in terms of hours played for a frequent player, what is considered normal for Fortnite? If you consider someone is a frequent player, what would you consider to be a normal amount of time they would play?
A normal amount of time for someone. We have daily challenges, we have weekly challenges. It would be normal for some players to jump in every day to complete daily challenges. For other players, they might only have free time available on the weekend and would jump in and perhaps play for a longer duration to pick up all of their weekly challenges. Some people might have an extended break of a week, from a holiday or school or end of a term session where they might play for an even greater duration. So again, it's in terms of defining just what is a frequent player. It's difficult.
Yeah. See, what I struggle with here is that this is a game which makes money out of people playing it. Mm-hmm. It's a hugely successful game, played by millions of people around the world. And this sort of basic information, and we know from the other games companies we've spoken to, is something that will be gathered and analysed all of the time. So I don't believe that you don't know this information. And to me, it arouses suspicion that this is not something we can discuss, because obviously for our inquiry, this is fairly basic information. We don't need to know your corporate secrets, but get a sense of what people, a normal player, a normal frequent player's engagement with the game, the amount of time they would typically play. Of course, it will vary, but I'm sure that you've got an idea of what the answers to those questions are.
I'm sure I'm confident that Epic as a company has the means to track and understand the finer points of player engagement. Neither of us are in the data analytics department who would oversee that kind of
Oh,
effort.
man. You know what? These guys are just like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm not in that department. The other guy is like goddamn marketing guy. He needs to know, their demographic. If they're like marketing to maybe players are not engaging, they need to know, like that stuff. It's kind of odd that he's saying that.
And I think more to the point here, at a very fine and specific point like that, we would consider it commercially sensitive. And I would also, as a side note, I would disagree with the statement that Epic makes money from people playing it. The games, the Battle Royale mode is free to play, so people playing it doesn't.
You're not charity, are you?
We aren't.
You're not making a free-to-play game for the joy of it.
Correct.
You don't make money out of it. You're nothing wrong with being a commercial entity, but let's not beat around the bush. You make money out of people playing the games. You can challenge that if you like, but that is the reality of the situation.
So,
I like that comment.
Sure, we wouldn't have a viable business if no one played and spent money in it, but I wanted to be careful with language about the notion that
That's why you're the general counsel. That's your job, isn't it?
It is.
Can I just go back to the FIFA game? I have particular interest because I have two sons and they both play a lot of FIFA. So if you're not measuring the longest, I think I asked you a question about the longest play time that you've had recorded. You don't measure that. Going back to what you said originally at the start of your evidence about health and well-being, if you can't measure excessive play in terms of length of time on your games, how are you addressing the health and well-being of your players?
They're like, oh, did we have to actually care for how long they are supposed to play? God, why the hell do you even have to monitor adults how long they play? I mean, look, it's like everything else, man. Gambling, drinking, whatever other things you can get addicted, even freaking extreme sports, whatever, right? Everything has its everything is good in healthy doses, right? If you do too much of it, of course it's gonna be bad for you. Games are no different. Even freaking drinking too much water can kill you, right? So I feel like, look, even if I don't like EA, right? I feel like these questions are really like targeted into like, kind of like digging themselves into a hole. But I'm hoping that they're kind of smart in a way to get around it. But I just can't wait until they get to the loot boxes.
I don't think even if we could measure the time that we could tell by the amount of time somebody plays whether they're playing in a healthy way or not. There are players who play quite a bit and live normal, happy lives, and gaming is what they do. There are other players who like to jump in and out of the games pretty much like any sport, any activity. Some people probably think I spend too much time reading books, and I know my partner spends too much time playing pool. But he spends that time playing pool because that's what he enjoys doing, and he gets very good at it. It's really not something we could look at and say, well, this person played too many hours and therefore it's unhealthy. Consumers have to have choice, and they also have to have a right of privacy, and we think that's very, very important. Now, what we do agree is that children are special, and we do have a responsibility to create tools and inform parents about those tools to make sure they can make the right choices for their children. And we think, as an industry, we do a very good job at that.
Would somebody in your company be able to identify the 100 biggest customers that you have?
Yeah.
Customers in terms of
Money.
Players?
In terms
Money.
of what?
Money spent.
Spend or playtime or number of
Playtime
matches.
or spend or both?
They have
I don't
the
believe
tools.
with playtime we would, because we, as I said, we don't measure playtime that way. We would have data on how many matches people played, but again, FIFA is a number of different modes, so it could be that somebody has the highest number of matches in one mode and somebody else has, a different number in a different mode. I don't know that if you combine them all that it would necessarily be equivalent.
What about spend? Would you be able to identify your 100 biggest spenders?
We do have spend data.
Yeah. And what do you use that for?
What
Classified
do we use it
information.
For? And well, I mean,
If you collect it, it must be for a purpose.
well, sure, but when customer service is the biggest thing. So, for instance, if you spent money with us and you had in the same way that Epic has a global customer support group, we do. And if you spend money with us, or have made purchases from us, we want to have the data on those purchases so we can assist you. So that is probably the number one reason. I think any business has to have records on commerce.
And what would you be assisting me with?
Could be anything. So if you'd like to know, with FIFA, the most regular calls we have are around questions with banning. So people who engage,
They're like, the freaking servers don't work. Get this shit working. That's the type of calls you probably get every day.
know that with our FIFA game, you are not allowed to sell your coins or your items or anything outside of the game. I would say
I remember we're like selling, coins to like real life, making money. A lot of people made money with that.
just number of consumer questions that at least get escalated to me on FIFA relate to people who have been banned for violating those rules. So those records are very important to us in helping understand whether someone has complied with the rules.
Okay. How many people a year do you ban on average?
Oh gosh, a lot.
That's a lot. Hundreds, thousands?
Thousands.
Thousands, right. Okay. Fine. Can I turn to you, gentlemen, please?
She seems so excited when she said, "Oh yeah, we banned a lot of people."
Is it right that there will be children playing without, parents getting involved? That's quite possible, isn't it? From what you've described, from what your colleagues just described.
For a game as mass and broad as Fortnite, it
Just tell them
may be players
it's
who
the parent's responsibility.
systems where controls have not been set up.
I think it's, at least from my point of view, it's important to note that in our view, and I think...
Why is it so hard for these people to tell them that it's the parents'
Fortnite
responsibility?
is in part due to being a content that is intentionally designed to be safe and comfortable in a living room environment. So I think the nature of the game itself is one that it means, in my view, shouldn't put it into the same kind of category of discussion as traditionally, violent or realistic action games.
Okay. Do you have age verification systems, Kerry and Sean?
So I think I can help even clarify some of what Epic was explaining. So most of our games are enjoyed on consoles, and in the UK in particular, the PlayStation is, I think, incredibly popular. In order for a player to play any of our games online, they first have to have a PlayStation account. You can't make a PlayStation account if you're under 18. A parent has to create an account and has to create a sub-account for a child. So by the time the player is coming to our game, they've already gone through the Sony system. The parent has created a sub-account if they're under 18, and the parent has been informed they can set parental controls to make decisions about the content. Do they want their child to be limited to PEGI 15 and above or PEGI 3 and above? They can make choices as to gameplay, amount of time played, and they can make choices as to purchases. So one of the things we do is we all, as publishers, ensure that our games are compatible with the PlayStation, with the Microsoft systems, so that when the parents have set those child accounts and have made the choices in those systems for their child, we respect them, and what they get in our games follows what they set in the console.
So it's Sony who's responsible for the age verification?
So Sony collects initially, Sony creates the accounts initially, so by the time the player is coming to us, an account has been created for them. In some cases, and for EA, in fact, we also create EA accounts, so we are doing a second check of birth date. Not everybody does that, but the point I was trying to make...
So you do have an age verification system?
So we collect date of birth from our players.
So you ask them how old they are?
We ask them for their date of birth.
So that's when they sign up?
That is when they sign up to get an EA account.
Yes, okay. And is that for what reason do you do that?
We do that in great part so we can service them.
So is that to sell them stuff?
It's all of the things I talked about before. It's customer service. It's also because we comply with data protection laws, and so it's important to us to know, who we're dealing with to make sure we're compliant with data protection laws. It's to ensure that we can give our customers personalized service, which is very important to us.
So you don't think it's necessary to comply with data regulation and laws by establishing the age of the people who play your game?
We don't.
Dang. I think he just put his foot in his mouth.
I mean, we've had evidence from other social media companies, to be fair to all of the witnesses, who've said there's a really difficult issue concerning age verification, and we understand that, and I think that the industry as a whole, it would be good if we could come up with an age verification system, and I think it's one of the themes that has come through in the evidence that we've received. But I'm surprised.
This is the thing though, age verification is meaningless, because at the end of the day, I think I haven't even spoke for a while, but at the end of the day, kids are smart enough to make fake accounts, lie about the age, there's no point, man, unless the kid's really young, then yeah, I guess it'll stop 5 years old from logging in and shit. But man, that is just waste of taxpayers' money and everybody's time. So the whole thing is the parents' responsibility what their kids are playing, not the games companies. All right, so god damn, these old farts are always with the same things.
That answer, Mr. Pence. So do you agree that you have a duty of care to the people who use your game or games?
So I will say, as a lawyer, I think it's a bit of a loaded question. Are you asking me if no, but right now the
I'm
online...
a lawyer too.
Yeah, no, I get it. Right now the online harms white paper is a white paper. If you're asking me if we have a duty of care under law, I can say that there is not a law yet. I do think we have a duty to our game players, and we take that duty, that responsibility very seriously. But legally, I don't feel like this is the place to discuss whether there's a legal requirement. That's why we're participating in the consultation.
Well, we're the House of Commons, This is exactly the place to discuss the issue.
Yeah.
The reason there's a white paper, which is a consultation document, is because we're asking people's opinion about what the law should be. Because we have an obligation to the people that we represent to put in place laws that protect, for example, children.
Right.
So I agree.
It's all the children, guys. The children.
There is no.
They need to be protected for the evil
There's a proposal
games.
from the government that there should be. What I'm asking you is whether you think there should be.
I think the white paper is a good starting point, and it may be that we get to a place where, again, not a one-size-fits-all approach, where there are additional legal obligations for companies. I don't believe the white paper is there yet.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Mr. Pence, do you think there should be a duty of care for your company to your users?
So I think the question is sort of, ought there be something between existing law regulation and some extreme version of walking into someone's house every night and asking them how they're doing?
But you just told me that you didn't think you needed to comply with the legal obligations that are currently in place that are imposed by the Information Commissioner.
I very strongly disagree with that characterization.
Well, the record is there. That's exactly, to my mind, that's exactly what you said.
He stuck that foot in his mouth.
Simon.
All right, guys, I'll be making this a stopping point, man. There's a lot of good stuff, but it's funny because like I'm looking at EA. EA is pretty good at answering these questions because it seems like they have a lot of experience and like, you know, like answering really good, but then leaving a lot of information that might harm them. And in Epic Games, it looks like they're like stumbling and putting their foot in their mouth every couple minutes and so, or pretty much every time they talk. But it is very interesting. I'll watch the second part until the next part. And like always, if you guys enjoyed this video, put those comments down below, hit that like. If you haven't done so already, subscribe. And if you already subscribed, hit that notification bell because it lets you know when I upload a video. And remember that this was Fury 10. I'll be seeing you guys later.